With relief at Aso Rock, President Bola Tinubu said the decision of the Supreme Court has settled the discourse over the polls. State House correspondent Adesoa Omoran reports on the reactions from the seat of power as political associates and well-wishers thronged the Aso Rock Villa.
With rapt attention, President Bola Tinubu watches the Supreme Court proceedings. And with the verdict in, there's an atmosphere of excitement. The president extends his appreciation to his appointees and aides for their congratulations on his significant legal triumph. More political associates and party leaders arrived to celebrate. In his first remarks after the judgment, the president says he's been vindicated and reaffirms his commitment to serving the country effectively while urging citizens to contribute to the nation's progress, promising to exceed their expectations in governance.
I've started from day one to work hard, regardless of, the court cases, okay? And just strengthen my resolve to do more. A challenge of this nature and a future of this nature is more work and more hard work, more dedication. Just appeal to the sense of patriotism of Nigeria to have a change of mindset. Let us be positive about our country, be ready to contribute in all ways possible.
The president states that the Supreme Court's decision has stopped mischief and ensured justice for all Nigerians.
The judgment of the Supreme Court put a stop to shenanigans, put a stop to innuendos, put a stop to lies or trial in the media and public place. The court has demonstrated indivisible commitment to rule of law and humanity, and their commitment to do justice for all Nigerians.
Reactions to the victory are unanimous. Party members believe it will enable the president to concentrate on his responsibilities.
It is clear, crystal clear, to all Nigerians that our president won this election free, fair. And I congratulate INEC as well for a job well done. It couldn't have been better than this at this time. Even though there are areas of improvement,
we must have, a clear direction on how to, get all hands on deck, get the economy agenda of this country on track. Let us put whatever differences, political or otherwise, and let us rally around this administration.
Now, our president can now be focused on the task of governance. All the distractions are behind him. He has a lot of work to do.
Furthermore, they urge the opposition and those who remain dissatisfied to collaborate with the president for the betterment of all Nigerians.
There is always one victor at a time. This is Asuaju's time. They should all take heart, come and join hands with him so that we move Nigeria to a greater level.
It is a larger victory for all of us. Today, it's a blessing for Nigeria that our sitting president carries the day.
President Tinubu and his party, the APC, are confident that with the Supreme Court's verdict and widespread support, the president is now fully poised to steer the nation towards a prosperous and united future. Adesoa Omoran, Arise News.
The air of celebration is palpable. You can almost touch it. And obviously, this headline has dominated the news this morning as expected. Rufai, your take on the story.
Okay, so congratulations to President Tinubu. The Supreme Court has affirmed him in all of this electoral process. I think Dr. Bati was speaking yesterday and he said he doesn't think anything will be, marginally different. Yes, the Supreme Court has ruled, pretty much affirming what the lower court, did say most of those depositions and questions. But there's also something called, constant interrogation by the Court of Public Opinion, which will herald more decisions as we go on as regards the case. The Supreme Court in their ruling gave a verdict on the 25%, says Abuja should not be treated with any special status, for electoral purposes, just like any other states. The 3 key requirements was met, the highest number of votes cast, and, meeting the threshold of 1/4 of 2/3, of the states of the Federation. And pretty much that was settled. Another part the Supreme Court talked about was the burden of proof, which has always been a problem, I think, which we have enunciated here constantly, that they couldn't put particulars to most of the claims they made that, okay, in certain polling units and all of that, hence they struck off some. And that there was a case at which they said, there were election irregularities in Kogi, for instance. They said Yaya Bello should have been put in the suit, should have been joined in the suit also. Which brings me to sort of like the lessons I would say politicians should learn. You see, the reason why politicians are very bullish about saying go to court in a presidential election is because of the case of the burden of proof. In a local election like a governorship election or a Senate election, it's easy to be able to articulate the burden of proof. But in a presidential election, because of the scale, it's always problematic. Spread over 176,000 polling units, you need to be able to get result sheet filled from those polling units, which is almost problematic. I doubt any political party has even up to 450 or 50,000 polling units across the country. So it was very problematic for those that were trying to overturn the election to prove that yesterday. And I think going into the next election cycle, politicians should get a proper arsenal, tech-based arsenal, to be able to collate and get all of the results coming in. It's really important. Another part that was talked about, yes, because of time, the 180-day framework, and the judge, Justice Okoro, did say, we don't want to go back to the days where election litigation took years and years and years before it was decided, hence the 180-day framework. And because of the 180-day framework now, and we can't go back to the past. So hence the deposition, from CSU, which I think is a very integral deposition, for the furtherance of our country. And I don't think it's just a voyage of discovery. I think it's actually a voyage of accountability, because we need to be accountable in a nation state like Nigeria. But the court says admissibility of that definitely will be problematic because 1, the 180-day threshold, 2, filing regulations, and 3, the 21-day threshold after the hitherto judgments, which had all elapsed. So that's what the court ruled on that. But it's still a matter that is open-ended and that will be out there for a while, because we've not had concrete determination on the merits of that matter. And all in all, I just want to speak to a lot of Nigerians today. What are the lessons learned from this process? A lot of lessons. INEC should have to watch itself to prove itself more accountable, to really abide by the things it says it will do. But secondly, Nigerians, you can't afford to give up on your electoral process and on your country. Truth has to be told. The road to nationhood is not an easy walk. It's not a walk in the park. You have pitfalls, you have false starts, but you need to keep pushing. And part of the pushing is gear up for your electoral processes. There are a lot of by-elections coming up. Participate as much as possible in those elections and ensure that you keep doing everything to develop your country. You can't leave your country to chance. God bless Nigeria.
Well, while it is true that they teach in faculties of law what is called judicial review, which gives opportunity for those who understand the subject to review rulings of court and concerned citizens to also express opinion, I think the point needs to be made, again, ad nauseam, that public opinion is kilometers and kilometers away from law. Law is not about emotions and sentiments. I've said that again and again on this program. And we have the authority per Nekitobi JSC in Atiku Abubakar versus Umaru Musa Yaradua, who said that the only clientele of law is the law, not public opinion. People may express what they like at beer parlors and all of that. And we saw that yesterday, that their lordships dealt only with the law, qua law. And it seems to me that they even made that point. Justice Nyango Koro made the point, telling people to trust the judiciary, because that's the last place of, of appeal. And so the judges, yes, they are not going to follow your opinion. It's not your opinion. They follow the technicality of the law. But as it were, this matter is now res judicata. That is settled in law. What is the implication? The implication is that President Tinubu has been confirmed as the properly elected president of Nigeria. The Supreme Court has upheld the decision of the Presidential Election Petition Court of September 6. The Supreme Court has further conferred, if you like, legitimacy on the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So that's a settled matter, and there must be an end to litigation. And which is why I think that, look, in respecting the Supreme Court, the best thing, the best option going forward is for all the parties to come together to realize one fact, that election season is over, campaign is over. It is now time for governance. And that governance, we cannot leave it to President Tinubu and his team alone. All of us are going to be involved in it. As follows: the PDP, the Labour Party, all the other parties, having lost at the highest court in the land, should go ahead and congratulate President Tinubu, as we have congratulated him this morning on his victory. They should act after the fashion of gentlemen and sportsmen, and then also go ahead to provide opportunities for collaboration in the national interest, which is the overriding factor in all of this matter. President Tinubu himself should be magnanimous in victory. And being magnanimous means, reaching out to everybody across party lines to see how all of us can focus on this process of governing Nigeria. Because there are very serious issues, particularly about the economy. And no political party has a monopoly of wisdom on this matter. And in any case, I also expect that after congratulating President Tinubu, the Labour Party, the PDP, and other political parties should also play their role as opposition party. Working with the Tinubu administration does not mean abandoning their role as a quality opposition. Now, let me go to the issues raised by the court, by their lordships. Justice Nyango Okoro providing the late judgment, and the other justices, all of them without exception, agreeing with them. There is cogent issues of law. And I think that their rulings is sounding law. I've always said it on this program, that look, within the province of conflict of laws, what is known as international civil litigation or private international law, if you go and take a ruling or whatever, or you go and collect evidence from another jurisdiction, it does not mean that it will automatically have effect. When I use the phrase here, that voyage of discovery to the U.S. District Court is likely to be of no moment. That was exactly what their lordship said yesterday. In fact, Justice Emmanuel Agim made a point that it was not registered. That was not the exact word he used, but that is the effect. Because for you to enforce anything from a foreign jurisdiction, you have to register it. You have to before you can enforce it. And he said, no, this has not been registered, so it's not recognized. That's number one. And it's very strange how the lawyers to the appellant in this particular case do not recognize that. Two, their lordships raise very serious issues about procedure and technicality. Section 285, sub 5, and sub 6, they said, are sacrosanct. In other words, you cannot derogate from them because 180 days is provided for. You can't go beyond 180 days at the level of the tribunal. And they wonder that this must be a joke, that you come and adduce fresh evidence, that's the third leg, that you did not adduce within 21 days as provided for in the law. So what they just did technically, procedurally, was to uphold the law. They also made a point about Section 22 of the Supreme Court Act. One of my good friends was arguing with him and saying, you are displaying ignorance. I told him, just leave this matter. Let their lordships rule on this, and then you will see. And they particularly responded to that matter. And they said, look, you can't invoke Section 22 when you have not followed due process, when you disappointed your client. So, however, what does that? The details are there in the public domain, and they talked about IREV with regard to Section 14 sub 2, Section 132 of the Electoral Act, which says INEC can choose how it will report, and the failure of the IREV portal does not invalidate the result, because there is manual collation of the result. Okay, all of these points were made. So that's why I conclude that these are very sound points in law. Now, what is called to question will seem to be the professionalism of the counsel to the appellants. And I say this with due respect, because these are very senior people in the inner bar. So couldn't they have seen all of this? Why would they willfully mislead their clients? If I just want to put it, I think that, in terms of expertise, with due respect, these people, they disappointed their clients, because what their lordships just did was to throw the textbook at them. All these things are inside the textbooks on the subject, and they back their reasoning with case law. But the more important thing for Nigerians is to see that, well, this matter is now settled. We have a country to run. We have to govern the country. Let the Tinubu people play their part, run an inclusive government, and let the opposition also play its part. This is the substance of the matter.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as his president. He has been affirmed by the Supreme Court. I will move on to the fact, because it's already been established in terms of the analysis of the judgment, but in terms of the fact that now that your job is secure, in the language that he used for his aides who came to congratulate him yesterday, congratulations, your job is secure. Your job is secure for the next 4 years, as affirmed by the Supreme Court. And I must say at this point that whether people are happy or not, or like it or not, with regards to how the rulings of their justices has gone, or the Supreme Court affirmation, the truth is that in the same way that we call the politicians to uphold and respect the rule of law, we as citizens must also do the same. So you might not like the outcome, but we must respect institutions. What we could do then, following these actions, is perhaps to see how to strengthen institutions. And the word trust, as used by Justice Inyang Okoro, is very critical. So in terms of trust, we have work ahead of us to ensure that we build institutions, whether it's INEC or the judiciary or legislature at any point, in such a way that we're able to trust the outcome. Because if we don't respect the rule of law, we'll descend into anarchy. So let's talk about some of the promises the president has made. Now he can now face squarely the issue of governance. And a few things he had said in the last few weeks and months, which we must now begin to hold him to account. The president has said he's willing to work for the benefit of Nigeria and Nigerians. And so we must now hold him to account, whether you are in his camp or whether you're in the opposition. Because at the end of the day, if Nigeria fails to work, guess who suffers? Every single person who is Nigerian, not just the president or his family members. So a few things taken into account. At the NESG summit, he had mentioned that he would take or grow the economy to $1 trillion by 2026. We heard it. We will take him to account on that, and we now want to see him let it play out in terms of how will we grow this economy. He also talked about the student loan taken off by January 2024. We had a conversation here as to what are the modalities of that being, actualizing that. And I mention this because we must almost declare a state of emergency on education in Nigeria. Now, at tertiary level, in terms of the hike of fees, this is the solution. So how do we begin to look at the education bank? How do we begin to look at how, the processes that must be in place before that takes off in January 2024? Palliatives for the 15 million households. Has this taken off? How long will this be? And then let's begin to think now, before the expiry date of December 2023, as to what next for the poor and most vulnerable in Nigeria. What are the plans of this government to ensure that even though fuel subsidy has been announced to have been removed, what will be done to ensure that the people do not suffer too much? Defending of the naira, security, and the rule of law, like I've mentioned, there's still a few outstanding cases. Good news, yesterday we celebrated the release of Abdul Rashid Bawa. How about Mr. Godwin Emefiele? How about Nnamdi Kanu? These are issues still outstanding. We have to begin to talk about this. Appointments. We had conversations around the fairness of appointment. The fact that it didn't seem as if there was a geopolitical political spread in terms of appointments. He must listen, he must pay attention to these agitations critically, because he's the president of the North, the East, the South, the West, and all the parts of Nigeria, and it must be seen. And of course, we talk about federal character, so it's important. And then I must remind the president again of the 35% affirmative action for women in government, a more inclusive government, more youth participation, and let's talk about people with disability. So these are some of the issues that I'm hoping we will begin to have critical conversations about. Congratulations, Mr. President. The Supreme Court has affirmed you as president. It's now time to get to work and do well for the people of Nigeria who have trusted you with their votes.